Going off track is.
Going off track is taking a chance on yourself.
Following your pulse of curiosity.
It's making your own decisions.
The most wonderful adventure.
Hey friends, and welcome back to Right Off Track, the podcast that dives deep into the untold stories of those who've dared to venture off the beaten path. I'm your host, Anya Smith, and today we have someone who's not just walked the walk, but also talked the talk in the world of brand sponsorships. Meet Justin Moore, the sponsorship coach and the mastermind behind Creator Wizard. This is a man, along with his incredible wife, April, who has turned the art of brand partnerships into a multi-million-dollar canvas. You know how some people have this knack for something? Well, Justin's got a knack for making deals that don't just pay the bills, but fill the vault. We're talking a whopping $4 million in personal earnings and another $3 million for other creators through his influencer marketing agency. But here's the kicker. Justin's not just another creator. He's been on both sides of the table. He knows why big brand A chooses influencer B and not C. It's like he's got the cheat codes to the sponsorship game. And get this, he's on a mission to help creators, whether you're just starting out or already a big shot, land 1 million paid branding partnerships by 2032. So if you've ever wondered why you're not landing those dream deals, stick around. Today's episode might just have the answers you've been searching for. So without further ado, let's welcome the man, the myth, the sponsorship legend, Justin Moore. Welcome.
What an intro, Anya. Thank you. Can you be my personal hype woman whenever I come on a podcast or something? That was amazing.
I love that. Yes. Everything is for your use. So feel free to record that, play that in the morning to start your day.
Yeah.
But so excited to have you here. And just quick shout out to Tim Beeler for introducing us. I call him the strategy detective. He is somebody I learned from a lot. And if you are looking for strategies around social media, his podcast episodes here too. But he introduced us and I saw your content and was thinking, yes, how amazing that somebody talks about this challenging subject and helps others. Because you and I both know, although I'm much more early in the process, that it's hard to create content and even harder to monetize it. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic of sponsorship and all the ins and outs of it that you've learned about.
Yeah, 100%. It's been made a lot of mistakes over the years as you have been in the game. First channel in 2009, actually, so almost 15 years. So every mistake you can think of, we made it, and that's definitely what led us here today.
I love it, and I'm curious. So I know that just having my husband earn money and myself as well, for me to decide to create content is still risque. Right. Yeah. With kids on the table, it's a challenging move to say, hey, I have this vision, purpose, I'm going to start it out. But the two of you decided to do it together, which is incredible. What was that process like? How did you decide to go and take that leap?
Yeah. So to clarify, we definitely didn't both quit at the same time. It was very much kind of a gradual rollout of the we're going to do this full-time plan. But the quick story is, my wife April started her first YouTube channel in 2009. So again, this was very, very early. This was again back before there was a partner program, back before you could make money on AdSense. It purely was for a hobby, as basically everyone who started on YouTube back in the day, it was the passion that drove a lot of the early videos that she made. And so for the longest time, this was not an income generating endeavor. It was very much like primarily she was stoked to get free stuff. Like, let's be real here. She had, her channel all around beauty and fashion and cosmetics and all that stuff. And that was her first channel. And so initially it was just brands offering to send free products. And, again, we were in our early 20s. living basically paycheck to paycheck. And so free, makeup is expensive, as you know. And so she was just like, free hair curler, free cosmetics. Sure. Send it over. I'm stoked. Right.
Yeah.
And so it really wasn't. And so I was, in the background, she was a preschool teacher. I just graduated. And so I was working in medical devices. And so that was like what we thought our life was going to be like. That truly, like that was, we never thought that like social media was going to be something we could derive income from. And so it wasn't until fast forward into our journey several years, that the first brand offered to compensate her. Now, I was, again, very much in the background, but when that first brand came and said, hey, we're actually going to pay you to talk about us in a video, that's when she came to me. And by this time I was in business school, and so here I am, Mr. MBA. I can read this contract. Sure, I can help you, honey. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, oh yeah, $200, $500, sure, that sounds reasonable, right? And so, yeah, those early contracts that we signed, I remember we tried to ask our family lawyer to for help, and she was looking at these contracts like, what is this that you're doing? This is so weird. Like, and she, bless her heart, she tried to help, but again, it was the Wild West. No one had any idea what we were doing back then. And so, like I said, every mistake in the book, we would turn on the TV and see clips from one of April's videos talking about a brand on a commercial. And we were like, wait, we weren't compensated for that. And sure enough, go back and look at the contract. And it was like, oh yeah, we signed those rights away for broadcast TV. So it's like, I could tell like 100 stories like that of like all the different mistakes, signing away exclusivity, committing to only work with a brand for free product, giving away usage rights, like agreeing to do tons of work for very little pay. And so, just kept learning from these mistakes over and over, and sharing these mistakes with friends who we made in the industry. And so again, it wasn't until, 2012 was when we put the plan into place to kind of, we started to make pretty good money. We started, got into the partner program on YouTube, started making, quite a bit of money on the AdSense views, then started making brand partnership money. And so my wife quit her full-time job in 2012. And I, again, critically kept my full-time job, right? And so we had the benefits and all that stuff too. And so we enacted at that time a multi-year plan to be like, okay, until I am making at least $10,000 more incrementally on top of my current salary, I'm not going to quit. Because we wanted to weather the uncertainty, right? So I could quit and we're making good money, but like, what happens if our viewership goes down or we're not making as much on sponsorships? And so that was really what happened. And so we basically decided, okay, until that happened, and if I hit that, I have to quit, because otherwise I'm never going to do it. There's always going to be the risk and the uncertainty. And so 6 weeks after my first son was born, in April 2014, so I guess right around July 1st, 2014, that's when I quit. And it was terrifying, Anya. Like everyone in our lives, family, friends, they were like, are you high? You're quitting a six-figure medical device job with benefits to be a YouTuber? What is wrong with you?
You're
right?
An
They
adult.
thought we were nuts. And again, remind you, this was 2014. This was not like today, where it's like totally normalized to like be a creator and like make money and do courses and like all this stuff. Like no one was doing, literally no one was doing, very few people were doing, we had no role models doing this. And so it very much felt like we were kind of blazing a trail. And so I'll pause there because it's a good story of like how, but like really it was a multi-year process that we made this plan to when we both dove in to do it full time.
And I know your focus is on sponsorship, but could you share a little bit more? How did you keep improving your content? And give us hope. What were some of the challenging, difficult learnings along the way, or the motivators that kept you going through this grueling process? Because not only, again, you are having a full-time job, but this itself is a full-time job on top of that. And now all you and your wife are doing this content creation, and you're working full-time, and obviously trying to be human outside that. Like, what did that process look like before you became the sponsorship pro?
Let me take you back, because first of all, I'll say that I think my wife and I have always been hustlers. We look back at both of our childhoods, and like we were always very entrepreneurial, both of us. Like before we were doing YouTube, like my wife would go, this would be a thing we would go do together. We would go to thrift stores, and she would find designer jeans and resell them on eBay.
Okay.
And I would do similar things. Like I was an art broker for a while, where I would like go and find valuable art and sculptures at garage sales, estate sales, swap meets, and resell them at auction houses and eBay. So it's like we were always, and this is just like one example of like, I did car washes as a kid growing up. Like, so I think a lot of it was in our DNA, both of us. And so, when we like saw some early successes with YouTube and started making a few dollars, we quickly realized like, wow, this could actually be a thing. Like if we really kind of, we got home from our 9 to 5 and we spent our 5 to 9 really hustling and burning the midnight oil, trying to like make this a thing. Like this could be something.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Let me touch on that and then I'll remind what I wanted to say. On the foreign kid side, what I recently had to reflect on is that the thing that I had to reframe in my head around that is that I don't fit in. I don't know if, and people get that from a variety of backgrounds. Like I trampled not just different schools, but different countries where I had to go back in. And in Russia, I no longer fit in because I was an American kid. In the US, I was the Russian kid. And if we were in other countries, I was whoever, right? And so I had the sense that I don't fit in, that people don't like me. Right. I came to the US with just my mom. So when I was looking for things I'm going to do in my life, I didn't have anybody who can relate to that experience in my family. I have a very loving family in Russia, but they couldn't relate. Like, how do you choose schools in this country? Like, how do you start a business? So I followed what I saw around me. That was okay, but I didn't necessarily see it another way. But recently, the point of reflection is like, is this serving me anymore? And I had to say, you know what? that not fitting in is obviously not serving me. And is it even valid? Things that don't serve us, can we ask, like, is that actually true? What if it isn't true? And I decided to think, well, actually, I'm very likable. Not because I'm just like, super duper technical human being, but I have things that I do like about myself. So why can't I pivot to be like, I'm actually really likable? So the foreign kid part is there. I got lost on the other story. I was trying to mention that the first day of launch for the podcast, nobody watched it. The metrics were 0. And that was a point of reflection for me to say, should I continue? Because I already recorded 10 episodes. I did this from scratch. Like I just got laid off. Should I even bother continuing? And I had to reflect, what is my purpose behind this work? Is it still meaningful to me? And I decided it is. So that's why I continued, even though day one, nobody watched it and it was completely soul crushing because I was like, this is the worst case scenario. I don't know if you've had those like quote unquote failures. And then you realize it can only get better from here. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep sharing this authentic, sometimes messed up, sometimes off script story so people can see themselves in it too.
Again, let's get some applause for the vulnerability here. Like you didn't know I had the soundboard here, but
I love it.
But now you do. Yeah. Okay. So you share a story of failure. Time for me. So when I did decide to launch a course, I thought, man, this thing is going to do so well because I had all these people in my inbox and DMs and people asking about a course, but like, it's very different for someone to like say, you should make a course and for someone to actually take out their credit card and sign up for the course, right? Like that's different. Right. And so I basically kind of went into this hole for months, right? I listened to every podcast episode about launching a course and then sales, copywriting and all, making an email list and doing all the newsletter, the sales sequences. And like, I did it. I did the thing on you, right? And so in addition to all those things, I also talked a pretty big game to all the people around me, right? Especially my wife, right? Like again, remember, in the ashes of this gigantic failure of my agency, which was supposed to be the thing that diversified my family's income, I felt a lot of pressure. A lot of it came internally for me, right? I felt a lot of pressure, like, okay, this agency didn't work out. This next thing better, because I really wanna, show my wife like that I'm worthy. Remember, these were not things she was saying to me. This was like my own things of like feeling lesser than because I had this tremendous failure that she has supported me along the way for so many years. Right. And so it was a lot of this pressure that I was putting on myself. And so when the cart finally closed for my first course launch, I had 3 enrollments when I had this massive expectation of like, wow, what if I make $100,000 on my first course launch, or what if I have this type of thing? And I was thinking about all these numbers and like, because you see a lot of this hype on social media. My first course launch, right? It's like this whole thing. Yeah, it's like broke their website, right? And I was like, so I had these fantasies of what it could be, right? And when I quote unquote only made $4,500 on the first, after spending 6 months.
Yeah.
Remember, to me, this was a failure. Even though $4,500 as it seems good money, but like to me, that was a failure relative to my expectations, right? And so I remember sitting back in my chair, and the cart finally closed, and the only thing I could think in my head was, what is April going to think of me? That was all I could think of. And so I remember getting up from my chair. I walked out this door right here. I climbed the staircase up to our bedroom. She was in bed, and I just kind of spilled the beans of like what the final total was. I still get choked up thinking about this, but she basically said to me, big things take time to build. And I cannot describe to you, number one, how much love I felt for her in that moment. Number two, how supported I felt. But also such a stark reminder of this fact that like all of the hype that you see of like entrepreneurs and creators doing these big things and having these amazing financial outcomes, that is like that is more the exception than the norm. It's actually more typical to have things start very, very slow and very small. And that reminder is what allowed me to just, okay, I'm going to double back down. I'm going to double down on this. I'm going to make sure that these 3 people have an absolutely amazing experience. My number one goal here is to get amazing outcomes for these people, get some amazing testimonials from them, you know, of how I helped them. And that's what I did. I worked my butt off to make sure that these people had an amazing experience. And it went from 3 to 5 in the next cohort to 7 to 16 to 42 to 48. So it's like, you know, and so it's like just a really good reminder that, and this is, it took, you know, years for me to start having some of these, you know, large outcomes. And so for anyone listening that might be having a similar experience, or, you know, like you, Anya, you know, you put a bunch of work into a creative project and it doesn't have the, you know, results that you're hoping for. It's just a reminder that like, you really do sometimes have to remind yourself that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. The energy, like again, we only have one source of energy and we lose that. But to your point, it's human. I feel that way too. Like it's nice to be getting approval from people that you respect and you value. So it's very human, but I think to your point, it's so powerful to have that reflection. Can I touch on one subject that I've been just curious about? And then I promise we're going to go into branding. I promise. But one thing that I actually admire the most about this journey, although it's challenging times, is how I hope they'll inspire my boys. So I'm a mom of our 1 and 4-year-old. I'm a stepmom to our 10-year-old. Our 10-year-old wants to be a research scientist YouTuber.
Wow.
And I want to show them in my example, however imperfect it is, that anything is possible. And I don't mean that in a cliche way, but I mean, if you work hard and you pivot and you learn, like, amazing things are possible. And I'm like, okay, Oliver, what are we going to do? Like, let's create a channel. Let's start testing it out. Like, let's stop dreaming and start like acting. And so to me, the biggest opportunity we have as parents is to make our children more resilient and give them examples of more what's possible, not just like the limited, you know, just go to college, just get a good job, blah, 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 checklist. Like we give them more opportunities through this path. So what have you seen, like this lifestyle? How has it influenced your children? Like maybe the good and the bad.
All right. So
if you don't mind us going there.
Yeah, of course. No, I very much respect that philosophy towards your own kids, and feel very similarly. I mean, a concrete change that my wife and I made is, you know, previous to when we first had our kids, the old adage is like, you got to open up a college savings account for them. That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. You open up the 529A, right? And that's what we did, of course. And so we've been dutifully contributing the money every month and all that stuff, right? And a few years back, it was relatively recently, a few years back, we basically kind of had a moment where we were like, number one, we feel like college is going to look a lot different in 10 years, or our oldest is 9. So in 9 years for him, like, is he really going to want to go to college? Like we did and march the corporate path when his entire life he's seen his parents be entrepreneurs. Is that really the best way to prepare him for adulthood, to like kind of force him down that path? Of course, if he wants to do it, of course we'll support him, but like, probably doesn't make sense for this money that we're contributing to his, you know, to help further him along in his life. Probably doesn't make sense to like contribute it to a a type of account where he can only use it for qualified educational purposes.
Right.
What if he wants to start a business? Are we going to prevent him from using that money to kind of try and do that? Dabble here and there? Probably doesn't make sense. And so we stopped contributing to the 529 and moved those contributions over to a more liquid account. And so, yeah, we don't have the tax deferred advantages of that, but like probably makes more sense for him to have access to those funds if he wants to pursue something entrepreneurial in his teenage years or something like that, right? Because again, I look at my own upbringing and like I was doing those things, right? So wouldn't it be kind of hypocritical for us to not support that for our own kids? And so that's like a real practical example of how we're starting to think about what and not even, I mean, we haven't even talked about like what generative AI is going to mean for our kids and what jobs are going to be available in 8 to 10 years for our children. Like if AI looks like it does now, like imagine what it's going to be, how it's going to impact our lives in 8 to 10 years. So I just think it's irresponsible as a parent to not try to start potentially gaming what a career and education will look like for their kids in the not so distant future. And so that's kind of where our heads are at.
Beautiful. Listen, thank you so much. This was beautiful. And to our audience, thank you again for joining us. Our mission with Right Off Track is to inspire people to live more fulfilling lives and to embrace their unique journey. So if this resonates with you and you got something out of this episode, I would so appreciate if you took just a minute, share it with somebody else, a friend, a colleague, somebody who's maybe embracing their journey as well. And I would so appreciate that. Justin, again, thank you so much for your time. And everybody, thank you for coming off track with us. We look forward to having you next time. Take care.